Welcome to the Brimful Podcast. I'm Pamela Tessman, an IBCLC, a mother of two, and former childbirth educator, doula, and ECE. I share evidence-based tips and stories on infant feeding and the perinatal period. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, so please always see your healthcare provider if you have concerns. Be sure to follow me at brim.familycare on social media or visit my website at brimfamilycare.com. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Brimful Podcast. Today I'm chatting with Janelle Fontaine, who is an RMT in Vancouver, BC, with a focus on perinatal care, specifically C-section recovery. So welcome, Janelle. It's so nice to have you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background, your story, how you got into the work you're doing?
Absolutely, yeah. Because, had I have known this 16 years ago when I became registered that I would be doing work focused on cesarean recovery, I probably would have laughed and said, no, that's not me, but here I am. I kind of kicked off my career even before choosing what to do. I thought I would be a midwife. I was really interested in pregnancy, really. Postpartum was not at all on my radar. But quite honestly, I'm not the most helpful if anybody is bleeding. So I decided that being a midwife would probably not be the best career for me. So I decided that probably being an RMT would be a great approach. Nobody's bleeding on our table for the most part. And I could support them really well. So I went to massage school. And when we did the section about pregnancy, I was petrified. I was so afraid somebody was going to go into labor on my table.
Really?
That I actually went into general practice when I graduated and did that for a few years. And then eventually worked with pregnancy, and got a bunch of training. And I've got my mentor, Paula Jasper, who's been amazing, in supporting so much of my learning. And, treated pregnancy, got pregnant myself, realized pregnant people are tough and babies don't just fall out. It takes usually a remarkable amount of work, to have them come out. And so then I was totally confident treating that. And the postpartum period came around with my first. And I was like, everybody, stop what you're doing. I want you to know about the postpartum period. It is a thing. It is a thing. And not too many people talk about it. And I hear about this time and time again in my treatment room where people are just like, what is this? I thought pregnancy was the hard part. And now there's this time afterwards that's not super straightforward. I don't know what to do. So anyways, I set out to become a postpartum doula. And so I did that. And then I just had a passion for postpartum care and postpartum support. And so I shifted my practice. It was pregnancy and postpartum support. And I started seeing more people post-cesarean. And they were like, what do I do? I had a cesarean. This wasn't the plan. And I said, I don't know. And that is not the right answer when you're a healthcare professional, especially when we can find out, when we can learn, when we can support. So I set out to learn, and many trainings and many years actually now later, here I am supporting folks basically solely in C-section recovery, which is pretty far from where I started, but I would not want to be doing anything else. This truly lights me up. I just hear it time and time again where people are like, I don't know what to do come recovery post C-section, and they're just very grateful to have some support. So this is what I do day in, day out. This is it.
Isn't that amazing how your journey just sort of unfolds?
Yeah.
I find for a lot of people in the healthcare world who are helping postpartum folks and, anyone in the perinatal period, it's like, I came here because of this experience that I had. So I love that. And that probably just adds to your care that you offer. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's lovely. So are you still doing postpartum work or you're just doing
I'm
RMT?
just doing RMT at
Okay.
this point, because I've expanded to teaching as well too. So between having a
Oh, right.
family of my own, I've got two boys. They're 6 and 8 at this point, and they keep me plenty busy. And massage therapy full time, and teaching. There isn't much.
Wow.
We need more hours in the week, quite honestly, because like postpartum care
Yeah.
is like so dear to my heart. Um, but
Yeah.
we can't do it all.
Or we need more hours or we need more people
We more
offering that
people,
support.
100%. We need
Yeah.
more people, and it's great that we've
Hmm.
got more people supporting. Like we've got just the conversations that we're having now are so different even than like 8 years ago when I had my eldest. There's so much more talk about like postpartum doulas and postpartum support, um, and maternal mental health, and so we're moving in a great direction. So it's just so good to see, because people need support in their childbearing years.
Yeah, it's true. Let's talk about the work that you're doing in detail. So, I think what I've observed is that a lot of people don't really realize how much the body goes through, kind of like you were just touching on that in the perinatal period. So, what are some common physical issues that you see new parents experience before and after birth?
So what I see like in pregnant, and this is really like more umbrella. There's so much more to it, but physically what I'm seeing in my practice, so many people when they're pregnant, it's like low back hip discomfort. Totally makes
Hmm.
sense. That's where babe's hanging out. And then they shift into that postpartum period and it's a lot of like upper back, neck, shoulder, tension and pain, sometimes forearms, hands and wrists. And that just makes sense. That pressure has shifted. We've gone from them on the inside to them on the outside, and we're spending a lot of time holding these little people. Our arms are into internal rotation, tightness in the front of their chest, neck, and shoulders. We're looking down at these amazing people that we've created. Sometimes there's feeding issues as well too, which could lead to some apprehension when latching and when nursing. And so that can also just like show in people's bodies. So that's what I'm seeing, postpartum quite a bit. And then post C-section, I'm seeing a lot of people just not sure what to do. So when it comes to supporting folks after a cesarean, I spend a lot of time on education, sharing what can be done. Um, because there's more than just like wait and let us know if there's an infection. There's more than like, don't pick anything up heavier than your baby. And so there are things that can be done as soon as like even 24 hours after, a
Oh, wow.
cesarean. Yeah. Yeah. And things that can be done at home. It's not like people have to go out and seek support, because at 24, 48 hours, people should be resting and
That's
not coming
that was in
to
my
see
mind.
me.
I
Yeah.
was like, how do they get there?
No, 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 no. If somebody were to show up that early, I would take care of them and then send them on their merry
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I do actually get people come in at about the 2 week mark is where I start to see people. Those are like my little early birds. They
Yeah.
start coming in at about the 2 week mark, but realistically, more people come in at about 6 weeks. But there's still things that can be done like at home when it comes to cesarean
Okay.
recovery. Yeah.
Okay. And what are those things?
Okay, so we can kick it off with simple things like just breath, like a conscious breath where we're actually
Mm,
mobilizing our tissues. It also helps with to like ease gas pains or gas like discomfort, help with bowel
right.
movements because like that's very important post-op. And then it just can go from there. Like we want to make sure that people are moving their legs as well too. So even if they're resting because rest is so important in recovery. Um,
Hmm.
that there's still an element of movement. People are still getting up to go to the washroom. People are still getting up to go get some water even because that mobility is so helpful in healing. We want to make sure our tissues are moving. Because the less our tissues move, the more there's an opportunity for pain and discomfort. And this is what we don't want. So we can get moving, even just ever so gently with breath, with moving our legs, even when we're still in the hospital. Just being aware of like if somebody's still in hospital and they're sort of semi-seated, just getting comfortable with like laying flat on their back. Sometimes people in hospital spend the whole time sort of semi-seated and then they go home and they could try their best to wedge themselves up, but it doesn't compare to being in the hospital, and that laying back can be really uncomfortable. And so even at the hospital, we could be practicing laying back and not being closed in so that we're really getting comfortable in our entire range of motion. So something as simple as that could be super easy for some. And they're like, I don't know what this lady's talking about. That wasn't a problem. And other people can be like, oh my gosh, yes, I couldn't lay back, couldn't lay flat, walked around hunched. Like we want to try to just be as mindful as possible to like open up so that there's like more movement in our lower abdomen. And it's not just
Yeah, I
coming
imagine
together.
if you're in pain and you're
Mm,
uncomfortable, that's just sort of a
yeah,
natural response, right? Is to curl around it and protect it.
yeah,
But that makes sense that you want to get your body moving the way it normally does.
yeah. And
Mm,
even it's the anticipation of pain. Sometimes because pain medication is
right.
excellent. And so pain might not be felt, but it might just be an anticipation of pain of, like, if I lengthen, it's going to be painful. And so that story starts to build in our mind. And it's like we haven't actually explored. And so that I end up doing with clients as well, too. If they're coming in all sort of coming in onto themselves and I ask them like, any pain or discomfort, they'll say no, and I'll observe that. And then we explore what does it feel like to sit up or to stand up. And they'll often be like, oh, I thought that would be more uncomfortable than it actually is. And same thing with like laying on the table. Sometimes they're like, I don't know if I can lay back. And it's like, well, do you want to try? And sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. If no, that's no problem. We can always support in treatment. But they give it a try, and very, very, very often it's like, oh, actually, that was more comfortable than I thought it was going to be. It's not as painful. Same thing goes with touching the area. Of course, in due time, we're not touching an incision that is in the early stages of healing. But I get that a lot where people are like, I'm not going to touch my lower abdomen. It just makes me feel uncomfortable. And that's
Mhm.
totally, absolutely fair. There's never any pressure to like touch your lower abdomen. Um, but many times people either receive touch or they start to get curious and either touch around or as they get closer. And they're often surprised that it's not as painful and often not even as tender as they had anticipated. So when it comes to C-section recovery, I often encourage my clients to just get curious about anything that they might be hesitant on. It's like, kind of be a scientist, be an explorer and like try
Mhm.
things and see how it feels. If there's pain, then after we work within that. But if there isn't pain or there's just a little bit of discomfort, then that's a-okay. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, makes sense. Test things out.
yeah, exactly. Just test it
Yeah.
out. So
Mhm. Yeah, and I can understand their hesitation because
yeah,
it's a major
yeah,
surgery.
yeah.
So that's a lot. It's a lot to go through. Yeah.
Absolutely, especially if it's unplanned. And I mean, we've got C-section rates here in
Mhm.
BC is 41%. And from that 41%, 60% are unplanned. And so that 60% of those folks, that wasn't in the books. They probably haven't prepared for it. And now they're healing from major surgery with a newborn. And so it's a pretty big pivot. So
Yeah.
it's totally fair that there is some apprehension, with movement, with
Mhm.
touch and everything like that. And that's totally, absolutely normal.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so great because I'm sure your postpartum doula experience also holds them in a way of like holding space for
Yeah.
them, right? And I'm sure like as an RMT, most RMTs are in the profession because they like holding space for people, but I just imagine that's like extra for you.
It is. Well, yeah,
I want to come
I
for a
love
massage.
it. My gosh, I taught this weekend and watching people
Oh,
receive massages, I was like, I
Mm,
want a massage. So yeah, it's like talking about massage, watching people get massaged. It's contagious, and then you want one. Luckily, I booked myself
yeah.
one for like the day after, so I knew it was
Oh,
coming. But
good.
now I'm like, I'm gonna do this all the time because yeah, watching
Yeah.
people get massages just makes you want to get a massage. And probably after this podcast, you will book yourself a massage with your massage therapist.
Yeah, I probably will.
For
It's funny
anybody
because
listening.
sometimes, yeah, go book a massage. Sometimes for me, I'm like, oh, I should probably have a really good reason to go see a massage
Mm,
therapist, but I keep like every time I go, I'm like, I don't need a reason. This
yeah.
this was great just for my nervous system. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
Because as care providers, and this can be in healthcare, this can be as parents, like we are on. And our nervous
Hmm.
system is spending a lot of time supporting other tiny nervous systems. So,
Yes. And
yeah,
co-regulating. Yeah.
yeah. So
Hmm.
even if it's like just for like support and taking care of our nervous system, it's so
Hmm.
important. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna write myself a note right now. Book your massage.
Exactly. Also, it's getting to the end of the year. It's gonna be busy. Book ahead.
Right. Oh, true.
Hmm.
I always forget about that. Yeah, the extended health.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So speaking of the massage itself, can you walk us through what a session with you looks like?
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So, um, a session with myself when it comes to massage, we spend a good amount of time, usually 10 to 20 minutes on intake. And this is because this is like a life-changing moment for so many people. They have birthed their baby. And so
Hmm.
it's so important to get an idea of like what actually happened because there's so many factors that affect recovery. There's so many factors that affect like how things went and how your healing went and what you're doing or what you're not doing and might need some support. And so the intake is very, very thorough. Um, and then from there, it depends. Like I have little ones come into treatment. So some people bring their babies. And so the treatment will depend on what the baby needs as well too. So if there's no
Right.
babies in the room, I treat the person as like a whole person. It's not just like 60 minutes, 45, 30, whatever on their abdomen. See you later. It's like, no, it's like what's going on with your abdomen? What's going on with the rest of you? And then how can we treat you as a whole person? So, sometimes it's like I'd mentioned, like back, neck and shoulders are feeling quite uncomfortable. And so I could start again, if they're comfortable in this position, because like really it's teamwork. A treatment is like between myself and the client and it's really what is comfortable for them at any point in time. If something's not working, they can let me know. We could switch it up. It doesn't matter. And that's anything from like positioning to pressure, to even areas worked on. So it's like if I'm working on an area and it's like, oh my gosh, this actually is more troublesome than I thought. Can you please spend more time here? We could totally do that. If it's like, you know what, this area had its fair share. Time to move on. Cool. We'll switch it up. It's no problem. But oftentimes it's like starting them laying face down if they're comfortable doing that. And then treating their back, having them turn over, treat their abdomen, neck and shoulders. But of course, this is just like a tiny snippet. Sometimes it's like legs, especially early, post-op. There could be a lot of swelling. So I do manual lymph drainage as part of my practice. And so could do
Ah,
manual lymph drainage of their legs, of their lower abdomen, just to get that lymphatic flow going and alleviate some of that pressure because sometimes that can feel quite pressureful, like in the legs and the feet. Um, and so again, it totally depends on the client. Like I mentioned, if babies are present, it depends. If baby comes in asleep, then usually we'll treat the abdomen first, because sometimes they're sleeping in a car seat or in a stroller or something like that. Or sometimes they're happy. And so they could be rolling around on the floor. I've got baby Bjorn little seats that they can sit in. I call it my little supervisor chair where they just like do their little baby thing. And, I get to like engage with them because definitely one of the things that I notice with little ones when they're present is like if Some totally fine to chill on their own. Others, the second you look away from them, they start like being like, hey, please pay
Right.
attention to me.
Don't forget me.
Exactly. So just like I make eye contact with them many times, just like chat with the little one, while mom or parents can like just fully just like receive. And then we switch it up from there. So, and then if baby needs support, then I'm basically, I like to say I'm like their hand. So, I can give
Hmm.
baby a soother. I can rock. There's been many times where I'm rocking the stroller with a foot and massaging with my hand. Um, so many things. I've done treatments with babies sitting on my lap. So that can sometimes get a little bit crazy when they're a little more grabby, especially when
Yeah.
working neck and
Yeah.
shoulders, because then you've got little hands like basically playing the
Right.
bongos on the parent's head. A little less relaxing. But there's just so many ways that like baby can be present, the parent can receive care, and then I can also give care. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Do you ever have families going, can you just come and live with me for a little while?
Yes, either that or like, I'm just gonna stay here. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, my next client might be like,
I'm your only client. Yeah.
my turn. Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. But
Yeah.
it's such a joy to
Hmm.
like have the babies present. I know some parents really like it, and other parents are like, yeah, no, I'm not going to bring my baby. Like this is my time. Nobody else is going to
Mm-hmm.
take part of it. I've also got
Fair.
families who will have a support person around. So like either walking the baby or being in the waiting room with the baby, and then that way, if baby needs their parent, then they can come in. Um,
Hmm.
there's so many variations, and
Yeah.
I'm always happy to accommodate.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
you've got to make it as accessible as possible. And goodness knows it's hard enough to leave the house postpartum.
Oh my
We're
gosh.
not going to add a layer of like complexity.
Yeah. Yeah. Simplify as much as possible for these families. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a practitioner in my community who we often see the same clients. She's a bodywork. In my lactation care, when I do home visits, they're like, well, I saw her and everything was great, and baby slept really well, and I felt really well, and feeding was great. And now all of a sudden it's just unraveling. And I
Mm,
thought, well, that's probably because your nervous system was co-regulating with this practitioner that whole time. And you and baby both were just like, settled into this nice place. And then as life goes
yeah.
on, it kind of escalates again. So that's a tricky part with postpartum too, is just trying to find that balance within that roller coaster.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There will be up, there will be down
Yeah.
over and over again. Repeat.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah.
The postpartum in a nutshell.
With C-section recovery and scar tissue healing, do you find that people have, like, do you see many common misconceptions that maybe they're getting from social media or?
Yeah. A few.
Yeah.
Um, social media, but also the healthcare system. I feel like we
Mm,
kind of, it's a bit confusing for people when they get told that at 6 weeks they can resume their regular activities. And very often at 6 weeks they don't feel strong enough, um, healed enough. Their pain might be so much more apparent than they thought they would be. And so they kind of feel like they're failing at healing. And that's tricky to hear. So many people come in discouraged when they're like, I'm 8 weeks. Like, I'm not back to my regular activities. And it's like, yeah, it takes 1 to 2 years to heal from a cesarean. Like, if it took us 6 weeks,
okay.
then our care providers wouldn't be telling us that we would have to wait 18 months to 2 years to have another vaginal birth. Like they're telling us that for a
Hmm.
reason. It actually takes time for the scar to heal and the scar to like
Hmm.
get strong, that scar tissue to mature. And then that's when we really get like more of a resolution of symptoms. And it's like, are we
Hmm.
healed to be able to like do many things at 6 weeks? Yeah, absolutely. Might we all be there? No. There's so many factors factors that affect healing that it's like very likely not going to be there if we don't have everything sort of working for us, and not many of us do, and that's okay. So yeah, that's one of my sticking points. If anybody follows me on Instagram, they'll see that I shout that from the rooftops. You don't feel back to normal at 6 weeks. You are doing great. And it's okay.
Even with vaginal births, you're not
Right?
back to normal after six
No.
weeks. How can you be back to normal after major abdominal surgery? That's just bonkers
It
to
just
me.
doesn't make sense. And I had a client just maybe last month say that it's a massive disservice that we say this also in front of our partners, because then some partners then expect us to be back like
Mhm.
cooking and cleaning, if those are our roles, or whatever our roles are, kind of like back to normal 6 weeks after a cesarean, which is not realistic. Even if it's just like you said, with a vaginal birth, you have a newborn. Like, we're not going to be doing our regular activities 6 weeks.
No.
Can you hear?
Hmm.
Especially when our partners expect us to be like back up and going. I mean, I think a lot of times we're hard enough on ourselves and we expect
Yeah.
ourselves, but then to have that expectation come from our partners, that can be really
Yes.
hard. Or family even. You know, maybe our partners are
Yeah.
understanding, but our family is like, what do you mean you're still laying around? It's like, also, what are
Hmm.
we supposed to be doing with a newborn? Period.
Well, and it's often not just physical recovery.
Yeah.
As my experience as a doula over the years, I was a doula for about 10 years. Um, the C-section births are so hard. You come
Mm,
out with either birth trauma or surgery trauma or both,
mhm.
and then you're having to recover from that as well. And oftentimes, when I saw people at home in a postpartum checkup, they would have family being like, well, at least you and baby are safe. And that just drove me crazy
Yeah.
because it's so much more than that. Yeah, there's a lot to recover from after a C-section. So to be expected to be over it by 6 to 8 weeks is just unrealistic.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Yeah. Not
they
helpful.
might be needing a counselor,
Yeah.
and there's all sorts of members on your team that probably have to be involved. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Build your team, that's for sure.
Hmm.
Mm.
So do you send your clients home with homework after they've seen you, or for like home care that they can do on their own?
It totally depends. It depends. Some people are interested in that. Other people are not. And I never
Mm,
argue. I never will also, like, I won't give somebody home care if I don't feel like they want it, or if they don't want it. Like, you can tell sometimes when some people are overwhelmed, or it'll be like
mm,
one thing. I tend to not give too many things because goodness, being a parent is enough. Being a new parent is
yeah.
enough. But, I definitely spend a lot of time in client education if that's something a client is open to. A lot of times they
Hmm.
are, which is like why they're there. But also like I have that conversation with them. It's like, what do you feel like today? Like, do you feel like you just want to receive, or do you feel like you want to learn? And some days we're ready to learn, and other days we just want to receive. And so it's like that varies as well too, like time to time. But yeah, lots of home
Yeah.
care if they want it. I also created the Cesarean recovery guide sort of as a bit of an answer, because of course, once you start like, I guess, niching down and getting specific, more people come and find you. And I ended up with like, and still have a wait list that is very long. Um, and that's
Hmm.
not good. You know, that's not proper client care. So how could I support
Hmm.
people? Was I created the Cesarean recovery guide, and that guides people through recovery from like week 0, day 1, um, beyond. So it goes to 14 plus weeks. And so
Hmm.
people can, if they want to have that, that they can kind of go with and learn in their own time, so that it's not necessarily given at the time of treatment. So some people like to do that in
Hmm.
parallel. Sometimes, people, actually a lot of times now, people will purchase that without actually coming to see me. Because it also
Hmm.
teaches them like how to massage their abdomen and their scar post cesarean. Like there's a
Amazing.
big emphasis on that. So, um, yeah, so there's that option as well too. For people, everybody is so different. Everybody's capacity is so different that it's like,
Yeah.
piece it together based on how people are
Yeah.
or what they're
See
ready
where they're
for.
at.
Yeah. 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 Cause they're already learning so much.
Oh my gosh.
Everything's
Yeah.
overhauled. Like even people's sleep. It's like what you thought was your sleeping pattern and how you did it. Not anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, how you even how you go to the washroom. It's like sometimes
Right.
it's like accompanied now
Right.
or
Like,
one-handed, and you're having to like bring this side up and that side up and it's like of your
yeah.
pants and it looks so different. There's so much learning that sometimes we have the capacity and other times we don't. And
Yeah.
that's why I love um just taking care of people when they come into my treatment room because it's like we need to support people. We need to nurture mothers, which is why
Yeah.
my business is called Nurturing the Mother because we need to nurture them.
Yeah. I love that you can adapt to everybody's needs. You've got something for everybody, it sounds like. So that's really
I'm
great.
trying to. There's a huge gap in care when it comes to cesarean recovery.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be filled by one person, me,
Yeah.
or any other one person.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing my best. And also this is why I'm now, encouraging other healthcare professionals to learn how to support people after a cesarean because it is so wildly needed.
Yes.
And just again, last month I had somebody come in and they said they asked ChatGPT who they should see for their cesarean recovery. And I came up, just me, nobody
Oh.
else. And that is like not okay. I mean, hopefully I actually haven't searched it lately, but like hopefully people can get more options because there are more options. It's just not super easy to necessarily find. Because like seeing pelvic floor physios is super helpful after a cesarean. Seeing a massage therapist. I actually talk about the 4 pillars to cesarean recovery, that being rest, which pretty self-explanatory. Compression is really important after a cesarean, especially in the early like weeks. And that can be started as soon as somebody's ready to start applying compression. And that can be through like compression garments, like compression shorts, compression underwear, compression tights, or even like an ab wrap or something. Not so much like a corset or a cincher, because like that is more at the waist as opposed to like over the lower abdomen. But compression is hugely important after a cesarean. Scar tissue mobility is another one of the pillars, and so regaining that strength. So many people post C-section, will report, and I mean, anybody after pregnancy will report that their core is just not quite firing the way it was, but more so after a cesarean. And it's like working on that core strength, so that muscular strength, and then scar tissue mobility. So getting that tissue moving. Once you've got those pieces, that's like such a great overview when it comes to like, sort of like what to do when it comes to cesarean recovery.
And you're teaching practitioners, you said, to do these massages. I think you were just in my community just recently, weren't you?
Yes, yeah. End of September, I was in
I
Coma.
saw a picture come up on social media and I was like, I know that RMT. Wait a second. There was somebody in there that I knew
Yeah,
of. So,
totally.
yeah, that's
Yes,
great.
yes, yes. Oh gosh, yeah. Oh, I love Comox. I love being there. I would love to go back. So yeah, more people, if they want to learn in Comox, let me know. I will be back there in a heartbeat. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm surprised honestly that it's needed so much. I thought there was more RMTs doing this kind of care, but I'm glad that you're available for them to learn from.
Well, and if maybe it's a question of marketing and that they need to be able to articulate what they do because it's great if we've got massage therapists that do this work, but if they're not specifically saying this is what I do, like people need to see themselves in like writing,
Right.
so it's like if they can see that I support folks who have had a cesarean, then it's like, oh, cool, I can go see this person and I will be well cared for.
And that'll come
But if
up in
that's
Chat
not,
GPT.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yes.
but it's like we just need it. We just need people to know.
Hmm.
Um, so I think you've sparked something with me. I might have a chat with like the RMTs and being like, if you do this work, let me do a talk about like marketing because that's actually a part of my training is marketing.
Oh,
Um, because we need to talk about what we do. Because if
yep.
we don't talk about what we do, people aren't going to find us. And people are looking,
Hmm. Yeah, it's true.
and we want them to find us.
Should have a directory just for BC.
Oh, I know. There's many should.
Put it on the list, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I like Santa Claus with like
Yeah.
my list of things to do.
Yes.
Oh gosh, I reached out to like BC Women's and just to be like, hi, this is what I do. This is what, and they're like, do you want to do research? We could connect you with somebody. And,
Hmm.
you know, being you've never done research, like they're researchers that would take your idea and like you would be a part of it, but not have to like do the entire thing. And I was just like, whoa,
Wow.
yes, but also not right now.
Yeah.
So that's another like later thing. Um, I'd love to see research being done. Yeah, to see like what actually does it look like when we massage tissues, when we engage tissues in cesarean recovery, and
Uh-huh.
like how does that support healing? Like we might have training in like scar tissue care, not necessarily pertaining to cesarean, but sometimes we're just like not quite confident and might feel a little unsure as a practitioner. And that's where sometimes it's helpful to do a training that's more specific so that when we set out to care for these people, it's like we can be more confident. It's like sometimes we're not necessarily learning something that's like super new, but it's like piecing ideas together that so that when you get to see this client, you're like, oh, okay, I know how to support you. I know what an induction is. I've got an idea of like what like IVF is. And so that when somebody comes in, this whole person, it's like you can listen to their story. You can have an idea of what they went through and have an idea of like how they're healing and then how you can support them, create a safe treatment plan and go forth with that.
Right.
So,
Can you tell us about scars and how the scars heal and how it works over time? I had a question come through on Instagram. They asked, what can you do 5, 10, even
mm,
20 years later?
hmm
And I thought, oh, I want to know this too.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so it almost sounded like there was a little bit like two thoughts there, but I'll answer for sure.
Hmm.
Like one of the questions you're right that I get like very often is it too late to treat my scar? You know, it's been
Right.
sometimes even people reach out like 4 months and they're like, is it too late? Some people reach out like 2 years, 5 years, some people like 13 years. We had somebody this last weekend that came in 13 years after a cesarean. And it's never too late. It is, this kind of work is just so fascinating to see, like, what happens if we treat the scar? I never ever guarantee outcomes just because I feel like if I guarantee that some things are going to backfire and I'm going to be, my words, it's not going to work. But it's fascinating to see once we treat a like quote unquote older scar, what happens. Very often we get a relief in symptoms within one treatment. It might not be like a relief that like lasts forever. It might just be like, oh, okay, we saw an improvement in symptoms. It stayed away for a bit and then it slowly started to come back, in which case then we're just going to keep working at it. But it's fascinating to see how scar tissue is very like responsive to treatment and very changeable. One of the things that I'm going to like debunk, if you will, a lot of people say like, we're going to break up scar tissue. We're not breaking up scar tissue. Those bonds are there. We need like to go in and cut it if we are actually going to be like breaking it apart. What we are doing is that we're creating tissue mobility. We're making the area more pliable, more movable so that there is less pull on like surrounding structures. And that's often what's causing the pain and discomfort. Um, So yeah, we're not going in, we're not breaking apart scar tissue. We're just creating an area that is just more pliable, more movable, to often cause like just a relief in symptoms.
So what kind of symptoms are common for scars, C-section scars?
Like older scars or newer scars?
Let's go
Or
over
both?
both.
Both.
Yeah.
Totally. So newer, um, so the first thing that comes to mind is numbness. This isn't so much, I mean, yes, it's scar related, but also not scar related. A lot of people experience numbness above their scar, sometimes all the way up to their belly button. That's very common. That typically dissipates within the first year, sometimes within like 6 to 8 weeks, but most commonly within the first year. And it's very, very, very slow at going away for the most part. Of course, everybody is so different. So I feel like if I say any absolute, somebody's going to be like, well, not my case.
Yeah.
But that's one thing that definitely comes up. Another thing is pulling on either ends or both sides of the scar. It can be some tension at the midline. So on the ends, it's interesting because typically the side that was tied off is the side that will be more symptomatic. It will often also be the side that either the OB or if there was a resident and the resident was suturing towards themselves, because usually when they suture towards themselves, whether it's the OB or the resident.
Right.
But the resident might have been the one who sutured, the last layer, if you will. And that side that was tied off will often be the more symptomatic one, the symptoms being more pulling, sometimes a sharp pain. Um,
Mm.
and so that's interesting on the ends. The ends also get most of the pull. Like if you think of the surrounding tissues on either side of that incision, it's like those ends are just getting more pull. And where
Mhm.
more pulling occurs, more scar tissue gets laid down. That's why like our main goal with massage therapy is to decrease tissue tension. Um, and that can be through like making sure that there's less inflammation. So that's like manual lymph drainage, making sure people are taking their medication as per their primary care providers. We're obviously not allowed to recommend medication or anything like that, but just really making
Mhm.
sure that they're well supported, that their inflammation is well managed, but also just general tissue tension. Like if there's excess tissue tension placed on that healing tissue, we just want to minimize that as much as possible, for the scar healing, but also for the person's symptoms because the more tissue tension that's on there, usually the more pain or discomfort that they might feel. So, and then at the midline, like I mentioned, oftentimes, um, so we've got our horizontal scar, but vertically, there's also a separation at the level of the abs, and that can either be incised, so cut, or bluntly dissected. So sometimes, with the surgeon's fingers or a blunt instrument, will actually separate that. Um,
Right.
and then sometimes that's sutured and then sometimes it's left to approximate, so come together on its own. And so oftentimes that's quite symptomatic as it's coming together. If it's been sutured, a lot of people will report more pulling, sort of at that midline. So if like they stretch up or they're reaching to grab something, they'll get a little bit of a like, ooh, or if they're sort of laying on their belly and they're just like lifting up, say engaging with their children, or if they're exercising or something like that, they'll feel more of a pull. So those I would say are early days, like sort of what early days, I say days, but it's like weeks and sometimes months.
Right. Yeah. And then so what would people find happening for them years later if they, may or may not have had some treatment?
Totally. So sometimes those same things can sort of linger or they can go away and
Mhm.
then come back. Um,
Mm.
some people notice that like before they get their period, it might feel more crampy or they might get more pulling. Their scar might be more sensitive.
Mm.
Um, sometimes, people they report when they've eaten too much, they actually notice discomfort around their scar. Some
Ah.
people it's when they ovulate. I've heard a bunch of different things. Just like those are less common. Like I'm just thinking all the extras. It's like one person said this and this, but like there's so
Right.
many potential little things. Um,
Yeah.
Sometimes, and this is something to get curious about, like if people have low back pain or have hip pain, it's like, well, how is their scar moving? And it's like, sometimes it's curious, like if we're treating the low back pain and it's not going away, it's like, well, we should also be asking, it's like, have they had a cesarean? And if they've had a
Right.
cesarean, any symptoms there? And if they've had it treated, sometimes it's curious, like, what if we treat that C-section scar or surrounding tissues? Because it's really, the scar is the tip of the iceberg. It's not the whole thing. So it's like we really have to get curious about the whole lower abdomen, because sometimes it could just be that it's like pulling more on one side and then that's affecting their back or that's affecting their hip. So it's
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
it can be further afield. Same thing with shoulders and things like that. So it's all about getting curious. Um, Really our bodies are so like we're dynamic, right? We're not just gonna stay the same for the rest of our lives. So as we like move through our life, as we get older, as we like gain weight or lose weight, take on new activities, our hormones change. We might notice a change within our scar. So our scar in our abdomen might totally be fine, no symptoms, nothing for years, and then all of a sudden it creeps up. I'm seeing people in like sort of perimenopause, menopause now coming to me being like, my scar was fine. And now my scar is just like speaking to me a little bit more. And so it's like,
Interesting.
yeah, so
Huh.
it's like, okay, well, let's get curious and see like what treatment can do.
Yeah, I guess that's a matter of like always thinking outside the box with your body and
Hmm.
like those intakes are really important. Like
Yes.
what has happened throughout your life and
Yeah.
what might this be?
Absolutely. And I think it's easy to think of like, say we've had an ankle injury or ankle surgery, right? It's like we know that if we take on a new sport or we, say we start running again or we go to the trampoline park with our children or we, whatever, right? And that ankle is just like, hey, remember how you injured me 5 years ago? You're like, oh yeah, right. It's the same thing with our abdomen. It's like,
Right.
it's still a part of us. It's still part of the change and the movement and all of that. And so it makes sense that that would also sort of raise its hand and be like, hi, I just need a bit
Yeah.
of attention. And that's why like building your care team is so important. And then that way, if something comes up, you either know what to do. So if you've like, some people really like, massaging it themselves and doing their home care, like strengthening exercises and things like that. Some people are very much into
Mhm.
that, in which case then they go back to that. They have the tools. They can go forward and support themselves. And then you've got other people that are just like, no, I'm going to go see my RMT or I'm going to go see my pelvic floor physio or I'm going to see my osteopath when symptoms come up 5, 10, 20, 30 years later, um, to get that support because we're ever changing beings as we should be.
So true. So
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? Anything coming up, like big projects or just more classes?
More classes. I just launched the winter cohort. So we've got two virtuals, one in January, one in March. We've got an in-person in Vancouver in February. I'm working on a training in Guelph and Ontario for the spring. So
Wow.
that'll be interesting.
Great.
And then I'm kind of open to seeing where this is going to go. I had in the one of the last virtuals, somebody was from the States. And so I have, okay, big dreams. I'm putting it out here. I would love to go to Hawaii, especially Maui, because they've got a massage school there and
Ah,
teach this. So people who want to do the training could then like tack on a vacation.
genius.
Because if you're flying all the way there, you write off your flight,
Yeah.
you learn something, you go play in the sun, go play in the waves and have a really good time. So I think that would be, that would be like, that would be a good thing to do.
I
That would
think
be
that's a
so fun.
great goal. Can I join?
Yes.
I'm not an
Well, it's for
RMT,
health.
but
Doesn't matter. I had a
yeah.
pelvic floor physio in one of my trainings. I actually had an
Okay.
IBCLC in one of my
Okay.
trainings.
So you don't have
I
to be
had
an
a body
RMT.
worker. No, no. As long as you
Okay.
support people in like perinatal care, it's like, yeah,
Uh-huh.
doulas. And that's the thing. It's like if you have an affinity to do like hands-on work, or even just like education, because so much of it is education. It's
Mm-hmm.
really amazing to see, like, when people come into my treatment room and we start talking, it's like they're usually quite tense. And once they start sharing their story and we share about like what can be done, it's like you just see their body soften. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like there's so much support that we can offer without even doing hands-on work. So that's another piece too. I'd love to basically do like an abridged version for like midwives and other healthcare professionals that might not do the hands-on part. Um,
Great.
and then maybe do that virtual so people can still get the knowledge, share the knowledge, but maybe they're not doing the hands-on work.
Great. I love that
So
idea. Yeah, I
yeah,
will watch for that. So where can people find that? On your website or your social media?
everywhere. So nurturingthemother.ca is my website where you'll find everything from like
Okay.
booking with myself to the Cesarean recovery guide to the training. But then social media, especially on Instagram, is where I come out to play. I have a lot of fun just sharing general information, showing up in stories, a little bit more about like motherhood there and like the day to day of just like being a healthcare provider. But and like different offerings and things like that up in stories. And on Instagram, it's, nurturingthemother.ca as well too. It's consistent. Nurturingthemother.ca for website and for Instagram.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us today. It was really insightful and helpful, and I'm hoping that parents will start to seek out this kind of care.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's my pleasure. And thank you so much for having me. It was so great to have this conversation.
Thanks for tuning in today. If you want to connect with Janelle or access any of her resources, those links will be in the show notes. Be sure to hit the follow button, leave us a comment, share with your friends, and if you'd like to support the podcast, you can feel free to buy me a coffee. See you next time.